Hello, in this video, we will be creating a film API using Django REST Framework. Start by creating a folder for your project. I have already done this, but you can type mkdir film app Django and cd film app Django to do so. As you can see, we will be using the PyCharm IDE as the code editor. We are also going to use Poetry as our dependency management tool, but you can use virtualenv or other tools to handle your dependencies. To install Poetry, you can type pip install Poetry. To initialize the configuration, type Poetry init. This will create an interactive session to define the parameters of the project. We will use the default, so just press enter or no when prompted. Now you can see that there is a pyproject.toml file. Next, we will activate the environment. Type Poetry shell. Now it's creating a virtual environment, and you can see that it is activated when you can see the name of the virtual environment in your terminal in brackets. We will add some packages to create the API, namely Django and Django REST Framework. Type Poetry add Django REST Framework to do so. Once the packages are done installing, let's create the Django project. Type Poetry run Django admin start project film app and dot. This will create the film app under the film app Django folder. If you refresh this, you can see that there is a film app folder and a manage.py folder added. Now we can add the migrations. Type python manage.py migrate. This will apply the migrations into the application. Now let's add the Django REST framework into the settings files installed applications. Under installed apps, type REST framework. Once that is done, let's test the Django server. Type python manage.py run server. Navigate to the port 8000 and you can see that the application works. Next, let's add the film app to the Django project. Type python manage.py start app film. This will create a film folder under film app Django with the admin, apps, models, tests, and views file. You can delete the tests and admin file for now, since we won't be using it. Now, let's add the film app into the installed apps in settings.py file. Type film. Let's start by adding a film class to our models. In here, type class film equals models.model. We will give this film model two fields. Title, which will be a char field. We'll give it a max length of 100. And year published, which will be a positive small integer field. And we're done with the models. Next, since we just created a model, type python manage.py make migrations to migrate the film model. Type python manage.py migrate. Once the migration is done, Continue by creating a serializers file. Under film, create serializers.py, and we will use this for our view. So let's import the serializers from REST Framework. Import serializers. Next, we'll create the film serializer. Type class film serializer, and it will inherit the serializers.model serializer. In our meta class, we will define the model that we will use. So model equals film. We'll import this, and for the fields, we will use all the fields, which is the year published and the title. And we're done with the serializers. Let's create the get and post views. Head over to views.py file, and let's create a class for that. Type class film list, and this one will inherit the API view from REST Framework. Now let's create the get function. Type def get. This function will receive a request, and the aim of this get function is to return all the films found in its database. So type films equals film.objects.all. For that, we will import film, and now we will pass it to the serializer. So serializer equals films serializer, and pass the films and make many equals true, since it will be a list of films. Let's import film serializer. We will return a response with the serializer.data. It will default to a 200 status code, so we don't have to do that. Just import that, and we're good to go. Next, we'll create the post function. So type def post, and it will also receive a request, which is where the post body comes in. For that, we will use the serializer and type film serializer. We will get the body by typing data equals request.data. We will check if the values are valid by typing serializer.isValid. This is the function, so we'll create an if statement for that to handle if it is going to return a success or bad request response. If serializer is valid, we will save the serializer's data by typing save, and then we will return a response with the status code coming from Django REST Framework's status. So let's import that from REST Framework, import status. We will send over a status of 201, which means created, and also the data. There. Now, what if the data contains errors? Ideally, we would return a response of bad request and the errors that are found in the post body. So serializer.errors, and the status will be a 400. 400. Once we're done with the views, let's create a URLs file so that we can connect the view and the URL path. Right click on film and click new and file. Create a urls.py file, and in this file we will create the routes. So to do that, type url patterns equals square brackets path, and leave this blank. We'll import path from the Django URLs, and the views will come from our film views file. There, film list, which is the class that we created, and type as view. Next, let's include our films URLs into the main apps URLs routes. So in here, we'll include our film apps URLs by typing path films, give it a slash, and then we will use the keyword include, which will import from Django URLs, and type film.urls. The URLs is the file here, and the film is the app's name. Once we're done, we can test the app by typing python manage.py run server. Next, we will navigate to port 8000 in our localhost. And let's go to the films URL. There. Now, there is only an empty list, but here we can add our post request. So, add curly braces. And in here, let's type a title of The Godfather and a year published of 1972. Let's test the post request. You can see that the request is successful because the film list is updated and there is an ID of 1 which is automatically generated by the database. That's it. We have successfully created an API using Django REST Framework. I hope you learned a lot, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you!